Ethan woke up in the early morning, his eyes slowly opening to the soft rays of the sun filtering through his bedroom window. He stretched and groaned, feeling the stiffness in his muscles. It had been a long week, filled with endless work and late nights, but this morning felt different as his hands ran down his arms during his stretch. He felt something unusual. There was a strange sensation on his skin, something he couldn't explain. When his hands stopped, he quickly turned, his gaze to his arms. He blinked, confused by what he saw. On his left arm, near the wrist, was a pattern of marks that seemed to glow faintly, like lines drawn with light. They were faint but distinct, almost as if someone had tattooed them onto his skin while he slept. Ethan rubbed his eyes, thinking he was still dreaming. But the marks remained, swirling and shifting ever so slightly, almost like they were alive. He quickly sat up in bed, his heart racing. What were these marks? How had they appeared on his body without him even noticing? It wasn't possible. Was it? Ethan stared at his arms in disbelief, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. But the more he stared, the stranger it felt. He reached out to touch the glowing lines, and just as his fingers brushed against them, a sharp jolt ran through his body, making him pull back in surprise. Okay, this is crazy, Ethan muttered to himself, shaking his head in disbelief. I'm seeing things. It's just stress. It has to be. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up, his feet hitting the cold floor. He walked to the bathroom mirror, desperate for any answers. His face looked normal, tired, sure, but normal. He turned his arms toward the mirror, hoping to see something different or clearer, but the marks were still there, just as strange and unfamiliar as before. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe this is all just some kind of weird dream, he whispered to his reflection. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. This wasn't a dream. After a few minutes of staring at the marks in the mirror, Ethan decided he couldn't wait any longer. He needed to figure out what was happening. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand and dialed his best friend, Lily. Hey, Ethan. What's up? Lily's voice came through the speaker. Sleepy but friendly. Hey, something's wrong, Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I don't know how to explain this, but I woke up with strange marks on my arms. They're glowing or something. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What? Are you serious? Lily asked, sounding more awake now. I'm not kidding, Ethan said. I don't know what's happening. I thought I was just imagining it, but I swear, they're still here. Lily was quiet for a moment. Ethan could hear her moving around on the other side of the phone. Okay, well, maybe you should see a doctor. Get checked out. It could be something medical. You know, like a rash or some kind of weird skin condition. Yeah, I guess, Ethan said. But his mind wasn't fully convinced. I'll go after work. But I'm telling you, it doesn't feel like that. I don't know. It's just a weird. All right. I'll meet you at lunch, okay? Maybe we can figure this out together, Lily suggested. Thanks, Lily. I'll see you then. Ethan ended the call and tossed his phone onto the bed, still unsure about what to do. He walked into the kitchen to make coffee, trying to push the weird thoughts from his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something more than just a strange skin condition, as the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creep into his chest. The marks weren't just strange, they felt important. He couldn't explain it, but deep down, he knew that they were the key to something bigger. Later that day, Ethan went through his usual routine at work, but the strange marks on his arms never left his mind. He couldn't concentrate on his tasks, couldn't focus on anything other than the feeling that something had changed, something beyond his control. He found himself absent-mindedly touching the marks, running his fingers over the glowing lines, each time sending a small, almost electric sensation through his body. During lunch, Lily found him at a small cafe near their office. She immediately noticed the anxious look on his face as he sat down at the table. Okay, spill it, she said, looking at him with concern. What's going on? You seem off. Ethan hesitated before rolling up his sleeve and showing her the marks. See for yourself, he said quietly, Lily's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the strange symbols on Ethan's arm. She reached out to touch them, but hesitated, unsure what to do. This is insane, she whispered. How did you get them? They don't look like anything I've ever seen before. I have no idea, Ethan admitted, his voice low. They just appeared this morning, and I don't know what they mean. I feel like I'm going crazy. Lily studied the marks carefully. Her brow furrowed. I don't think you're going crazy, Ethan, but this isn't normal. Maybe you should go to a doctor like I said earlier. You need answers. I'm going after work, Ethan said, nodding. But I think there's more to this than just a rash or whatever. The rest of lunch passed in a blur, with Ethan and Lily talking but not getting any closer to an answer. Ethan's mind was racing, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Later that afternoon, as Ethan was leaving the office, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. A girl was standing across the street, watching him. She was tall, with dark hair that fell to her shoulders, and she had an almost ethereal quality about her. She wore a simple dress that didn't seem to match the style of clothes anyone else in the city was wearing. Their eyes met, and she smiled. Without thinking, Ethan crossed the street and walked towards her. As he got closer, the marks on his arms tingled, as if they were reacting to her presence. Hello, Ethan, the girl said, her voice soft yet confident. I'm Zara. It's good to finally meet you. Ethan stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. How do you know my name? Zara's smile widened. I've been watching you for a long time, and now the change has begun. Ethan stared at her in confusion. The change? What do you mean? He asked, his voice shaking. The marks, Zara said, pointing to his arm. They're part of it. They're part of you now, Ethan. And they are about to unlock something inside of you. You will understand soon enough. But for now, trust me when I say, this is only the beginning. Ethan stood frozen, his eyes locked on the strange woman in front of him. Zara's smile was warm, but there was something unsettling about her calm presence. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them standing on the busy street, like they were in their own little bubble. You know my name? Ethan asked, his voice shaky. Zara nodded, her dark eyes meeting his with a knowing gaze. Yes, Ethan. I've been watching you for a long time now. I knew the moment your transformation began. It's why I'm here. Ethan took a step back, his heart pounding faster. What are you talking about? What transformation? And why me? Zara's smile didn't fade as she took a small step forward. You've been chosen, Ethan. Chosen for something much bigger than anything you could imagine. The marks on your arms, they're just the beginning. You're about to change in ways you cannot understand yet, but you will soon. Ethan could feel the panic rising inside him. This couldn't be real. Could it? He glanced at his arms again. The marks, still faintly glowing, had begun to shift, as if they were moving under his skin. He rubbed his arms, trying to will the marks away, but they only seemed to grow brighter in response. I don't understand. This can't be happening. I know it's hard to believe, Zara said softly, but you'll come to understand. Just trust me. Ethan stared at her, his thoughts racing. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't even know who you are. Zara's expression softened. I'm from another world, Ethan. My people, the Orcs, have been watching humanity for centuries. We've been waiting for the right moment to help you unlock your potential. The marks on your arms are a signal that the time has come. You are one of the few humans who will experience this transformation, but you are not alone. Ethan shook his head, unable to process what he was hearing. Another world, Orcs. You're saying I've been chosen by aliens? This doesn't make sense. Zara took a deep breath, sensing his fear and confusion. I know this is overwhelming, but you must listen. The Orcs have been guiding humanity for a long time. We've helped shape your civilization in ways you don't even realize. The time is coming when humans will need to be more than they are, and you, Ethan, are one of the few who will lead the way. Lead? Ethan asked, his mind spinning. Lead what? Lead humanity into a new era, Zara replied. The Orcs have seen your potential. We've chosen you because of the strength inside you, even if you don't see it yet. Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. His mind was reeling. Everything about this felt wrong, but at the same time, there was a part of him that couldn't ignore the strange pull he felt towards Zara. There was something about her, something calm and knowing that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth. He closed his eyes, trying to clear his thoughts. The marks on his arms throbbed with energy, as if reacting to his confusion. He clenched his fists, trying to focus. When he opened his eyes again, Zara was still standing there, patiently waiting for him to respond. "I know it's hard, Ethan," she said, her voice gentle. "But the change has begun. You are no longer just human. The transformation has started, and you will need to learn how to control it. Control it." Ethan asked, his voice shaky. "How am I supposed to control something I don't understand?" Zara smiled again, the expression both reassuring and mysterious. "You will learn, in time. The transformation will give you abilities, powers that are unlike anything you've ever known. The marks are your first step, but there's more to come. And when it's time, you will know exactly what to do." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. His mind was still filled with questions. But there was one thing he knew for sure: his life was never going to be the same again. The marks on his arms were proof of that. I don't know if I'm ready for this," Ethan said quietly. "You don't have to be ready yet," Zara replied. "That's why I'm here. I will help you. I will guide you through this process. But you must trust me, Ethan. There is no going back." He looked at her, uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't sure if he could trust her, but deep down, a part of him knew that he had no other choice. "Okay," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll trust you." Zara's smile widened, as if she had been waiting for him to say those words. "Good, you're on the right path now." Ethan wasn't sure what to expect next, but as Zara led him away from the crowded street, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. Over the next few days, Ethan met with Zara several times. Each time, she taught him something new about his transformation. The glowing marks on his arms had started to spread, now reaching up toward his shoulders and down toward his hands. The strange energy he felt whenever he touched them had become more intense, more powerful. One night, as they sat on a park bench under the stars, Zara spoke again. "The marks on your body are not just physical. They are a symbol of the power that lies within you. Your transformation is not only about your body, but also your mind. You are becoming more than just human. You are becoming something greater." Ethan looked at his arms, watching as the marks pulsed with light. He could feel the power within them, and he knew that this was just the beginning. There was still so much he didn't understand. But with Zara's guidance, he was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could handle whatever was coming next. "Do you feel it?" Zara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The change?" Ethan nodded, his eyes wide with realization. "I think I do. It's just the beginning," Zara said softly. "But don't worry, you're not alone. I'm here to help you." As he sat next to her, looking up at the stars, Ethan couldn't help but wonder what the future held. But one thing was clear: whatever it was going to be unlike anything he had ever known. The next few days were a blur for Ethan. His life had shifted in ways he couldn't explain. He had always been a regular guy, nothing special, just an office worker who went about his day like anyone else. But now, everything felt different. His arms tingled constantly with the strange energy from the marks, and every time he touched them, he could feel something deep within himself awakening. Zara had been with him through every step of this transformation. She taught him things that seemed impossible to understand. With every meeting, she unlocked another layer of his powers, and although he was scared, there was also a strange excitement building inside him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Zara met Ethan in the park again. It was a place they had come to often in the last few days, where they could sit in peace and talk. "How are you feeling today?" Zara asked as she sat down next to him. Ethan looked at his arms. watching the marks shift and glow. I don't know. I feel like something's growing inside of me. It's like I'm not just me anymore. I'm becoming something else. Zara nodded, her expression serious but kind. That's the transformation. The marks on your arms are just the beginning, Ethan. You're starting to access parts of yourself you didn't know existed. The power inside you is more than you can imagine, but it's going to take time to understand it. Ethan sighed, rubbing his hands over his face. I still don't get it. How's this even possible? How can I have these abilities? I'm just a normal guy. Nothing about you is normal anymore, Zara said gently, her eyes meeting his. You've been chosen for a reason. The Orcs didn't choose just anyone. We chose you because you have the strength to handle what's coming. What's coming? Ethan asked, his voice trembling. He had a feeling Zara wasn't just talking about his transformation anymore. There's more to this than you think, she replied. The transformation is not just for you. It's for all of humanity. You are going to lead them, Ethan. You're going to help humanity become what it was always meant to be, more than just survivors. In a harsh world, you will help them reach their true potential. Ethan shook his head in disbelief. Lead them? Me? I'm not even sure I can control what's happening to me, let alone be some kind of leader. Zara's face softened. I know it's hard to believe. It's overwhelming, I know. But the power inside you isn't just physical. It's mental, too. Your mind will unlock as the transformation continues. You'll see things differently. You'll know things before they happen. You'll be able to influence the world in ways no one else can. And with that comes responsibility. Ethan stared at her, his thoughts swirling. The idea that he could change the world seemed impossible. He had always felt small, just another person in a vast, busy world. But now, he was being told he was something special, something different. Could he really become the leader she said he would be? What do you want me to do? Ethan asked quietly, his voice almost a whisper. How do I even start with all of this? Zara smiled, her eyes warm with reassurance. First, you have to trust yourself. Trust the power inside you. It's there for a reason. The marks on your body are a sign that you're ready for this. You've always had the potential for greatness, Ethan. The Orcs just helped you unlock it. Ethan looked down at his hands, watching as the marks pulsed with light. He couldn't deny the feeling inside him, the strange energy that seemed to flow through his veins. It was real, and it was growing stronger by the day. But even as he accepted the reality of his transformation, he couldn't shake the fear that came with it. What if he couldn't control it? What if he failed? Zara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, bringing him back to the moment. You won't fail. Not if you stay true to yourself. You were chosen because you have the strength to rise to this challenge. The Orcs are with you. I am with you. And you won't be alone. Ethan took a deep breath, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. He had no idea what was coming, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't turn back now. The change had already begun, and there was no stopping it. I don't know if I'm ready for this, he admitted, his voice shaking slightly. You don't have to be, Zara said, her voice steady and confident. But you will be, in time. The next few days passed in a haze of confusion and wonder. Ethan continued to train with Zara, learning how to harness the powers that flowed through him. He could feel his abilities growing stronger each day. His senses were sharper. He could hear the faintest sounds, see small details he had never noticed before. His strength had increased, too. He was faster, more agile, and he felt stronger than he ever had before. But with these powers came new challenges. Ethan found it hard to control his emotions. When he was frustrated or angry, the marks on his arms would flare up, and he could feel the power inside him surging, ready to break free. Zara was always there to calm him, to remind him that the key was in learning how to control it. It's all about focus, she told him one evening, as they stood in a quiet alley near the park. The power inside you isn't meant to be fought, it's meant to be channeled. Ethan nodded, trying to focus as Zara guided him through a series of breathing exercises. He was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about physical strength, it was about control. About learning to control the power inside of him without letting it take over. But even as he made progress, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something bigger than just his transformation. Zara had hinted at it, but she hadn't explained everything. What was he really being prepared for? What would the future hold? It wasn't until a week later, as Ethan stood on the balcony of his apartment, staring out at the city, that he got his answer. Zara's voice broke the silence as she stepped up beside him. "The time has come," she said quietly. Ethan turned to her, his heart racing. "The time for what?" "The time for you to lead," Zara replied. "The Voreks have prepared you. You've unlocked your potential. Now it's time to act." Ethan felt the weight of her words settle over him. He had known this moment would come, but now that it was here, he felt both ready and terrified. Could he truly lead humanity to a new future? Could he control the power inside him? As he looked at the city below, Ethan knew that whatever came next, he was no longer the same person who had woken up with strange marks on his arms. He had changed, and the world was about to change with him. The days following Ethan's training with Zara felt like a whirlwind. He was becoming more in control of his new abilities, but the pressure was mounting. He still had questions, and deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong despite Zara's reassurances. He sensed that the world around him was shifting in ways he couldn't fully understand. It wasn't until one evening, as he and Zara sat in their usual spot at the park, that the truth finally began to surface. "You're ready, Ethan," Zara said, her voice calm but filled with an edge of urgency. "The time has come to prepare for what's next." Ethan looked at her, trying to read the emotions behind her cool, steady exterior. "What do you mean?" he asked. He had been practicing his abilities, growing stronger. But there was always a feeling of unease. "What's next?" "The Voreks have done their part," Zara replied. "You've unlocked your potential. But there are others, enemies who won't allow humanity to rise." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Enemies? You mean like the ones you mentioned before?" Zara nodded gravely. "Yes, there are others who are watching you, waiting. The enemies of the Voreks have been tracking you ever since you began your transformation. They want to stop humanity from reaching its potential. They don't want you or anyone like you to succeed." The weight of her words sank in. Ethan could feel the power inside him, but it hadn't prepared him for what Zara was telling him. "Now, how do we stop them? How do we fight back?" Zara's expression hardened, her eyes darkening with a hint of something cold. "You have to understand, Ethan. These enemies are no ordinary foes. They are powerful beings who can manipulate the very forces of the universe itself. They are known as the Cruvens. They've been watching humanity for centuries, and they will stop at nothing to keep you from unlocking your true potential." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Cruvens, he had never heard of them before, but the way Zara spoke of them sent a shiver through him. These weren't just enemies, they were a threat to everything he had come to believe in. "I didn't know about them," Ethan said quietly, looking at his hands. "How could I fight against something like that?" "You don't have to fight them alone," Zara said, her voice reassuring but firm. "The Voreks have been preparing for this. You're not the only one with this power. There are others humans like you, marked by the transformation. We'll need to find them and unite." Ethan's thoughts swirled. He had only just begun to understand his abilities, and now he was being told he had to lead a group of people against an unknown, powerful enemy. It seemed impossible, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized he had no choice. The future of humanity depended on him. "So, what now?" Ethan asked, his voice steady, though he could feel the anxiety bubbling just beneath the surface. "How do we start?" Zara stood up and looked around the park, her eyes scanning the surroundings, almost as if she were searching for something or someone. "We start by finding the others," she said. "I'll take you to the first one tonight, but we must move quickly. The Cruvens know you've begun your transformation, and they won't waste any time coming for you." Ethan stood up, his mind racing. The idea of leading a group against such powerful enemies was overwhelming, but the reality of the situation was clear. He had no choice. The transformation had already begun, and now the future of humanity rested in his hands. That night, under the cover of darkness, Zara led Ethan to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. As they approached, Ethan could feel the tension in the air. Something about this place felt off, and his senses were on high alert. "This is it," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned to Ethan and sighed. "You'll meet the first of the others. He's one of the few humans who has undergone the same transformation you've experienced." Ethan nodded, though his heart was racing. He didn't know what to expect, but he was ready. As they stepped into the warehouse, the darkness seemed to swallow them whole. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and metal. There were no lights, but Zara seemed to know the way, her eyes glowing faintly with the same energy that radiated from Ethan's arms. "Stay close," Zara instructed, her voice low. They walked deeper into the warehouse until they came to a small, dimly lit room. Inside, a man was waiting, standing by a table cluttered with various tools and equipment. His eyes met Ethan's as soon as he entered, and a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "You must be Ethan," the man said, his voice calm but with an edge of strength. "I've been waiting for you." Ethan took a step forward, studying the man. He was tall, with short, dark hair and a strong build. But there was something unusual about him, something that made Ethan's instincts tell him this man was more than just a regular human. He was like Ethan, marked by the transformation. "I'm Cameron," the man continued, extending his hand. "It's good to finally meet you." Ethan shook his hand, his mind racing. "How do you know me?" "We've been watching you," Cameron replied. "Zara and I. We've been tracking the transformation for some time. We knew the day would come when the chosen ones would begin to awaken. You are one of them, Ethan. And together, we are the key to unlocking humanity's potential." The weight of Cameron's words settled over Ethan. There was so much to understand, so much to learn, and yet he knew they didn't have time. The Cruvens were out there, watching, and they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything. "Are you ready for this?" Cameron asked, his eyes studying Ethan. Ethan took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. "I have to be. We all have to be," Cameron said with a serious nod. "The time to act is now." Zara stepped forward. "We don't have much time. The Cruvens will be here soon. Ethan, you and Cameron will need to learn to fight together. You will need to learn to control your powers, and you will need to fight as a team. This is only the beginning. We will need every ally we can find." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. But he couldn't back down now. The world had changed, and he had changed with it. There was no going back. "Let's do this," he said, determination in his voice. And so, the first steps of the war began. The days that followed were filled with training and preparation. Ethan was no longer just a man with strange marks on his arms. He was now part of something much bigger. The transformation Zara had spoken of was real, and with every passing moment, he could feel his abilities growing stronger. But despite the power he was learning to control, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was still ahead of him. The Cruvens were out there, waiting, and they would stop at nothing to destroy everything he and Zara were trying to build. Zara and Cameron had both become his mentors, showing him how to harness the power coursing through his body. They worked with him every day, teaching him how to focus his mind and control the energy that surged inside of him. Each time he practiced, he could feel himself getting closer to understanding his true potential, but there were still so many questions that lingered. One evening, as the sun began to set, Ethan stood on a rooftop, looking out over the city. He had been training for weeks, and while he could feel the change inside him, it still didn't feel real. He wasn't sure if he was ready to face whatever was coming, but deep down, he knew he had no choice. Cameron appeared beside him, silent. At first, after a moment, he spoke. "You're doing well, Ethan. You've come a long way in a short time, but you have to remember this isn't just about your abilities. It's about the choices you make." Ethan turned to him, confused. "What do you mean?" "It's not just about fighting," Cameron continued. "It's about leading. You have the power, yes, but with that power comes a responsibility. You have to make decisions that will affect the lives of many." The transformation, The marks on your arms are a sign that you've been chosen for a purpose that goes beyond just survival. Ethan looked out over the city again, his thoughts heavy. I don't feel ready for that. I don't feel like I can make those kinds of decisions. I'm just me. Just a regular guy who's been thrown into something I don't understand. Cameron placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. None of us feel ready when we're first called to act, but it's not about being ready, it's about doing what's right when the time comes. Ethan nodded slowly, taking in Cameron's words. He knew Cameron was right, but it didn't make the weight of the responsibility any lighter. He was being asked to lead humanity, to fight against the Cruvens, and to protect everyone he loved. The pressure was almost overwhelming, and for a moment, Ethan felt the urge to walk away, to run from it all. But deep down, he knew he couldn't. He had already come too far. As the night grew darker, Zara arrived, her silhouette emerging from the shadows. She had been quiet for most of the day, and Ethan had noticed her distant mood. He knew she was worried about the impending threat and the future they all faced. You're ready, Zara said softly, her voice carrying a weight of determination. The time has come. Ethan turned to her, sensing the change in her tone. There was something different about her tonight, something urgent. Ready for what? Zara stepped closer to him, her eyes scanning the horizon. We found the others, she said, her voice steady. It's time to unite them. The Cruvens are closing in, and we need every ally we can find. They won't stop until they've wiped out everyone who stands in their way. Ethan felt his heart race at the mention of the Cruvens. The enemy was closing in, and the reality of the situation hit him harder than ever. There was no more time to train, no more time to prepare. The war was coming, and he had to be ready. When do we leave? Ethan asked, his voice full of resolve. Tonight, Zara replied. We've identified their location. They've been hiding, waiting for the right moment to strike. But we can't wait any longer. We move now, or it will be too late. Without another word, Zara turned and began to walk toward the exit. Cameron followed closely behind. And Ethan, though filled with uncertainty, knew he had no choice but to follow. The journey to find the other marked humans was long and tiring, but there was no time to waste. They traveled through back streets and hidden pathways. Staying out of sight from the Cruvens' watchful eyes, Ethan could feel the weight of every step, knowing that every moment brought them closer to the final confrontation. The closer they got to their destination, the stronger the feeling of dread became. After hours of travel, they arrived at an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. Zara led them inside, her eyes scanning the area carefully before she motioned for them to follow. The building was old, the walls cracked and covered in grime. It was a place that felt forgotten, like it had been abandoned long ago. But as they moved deeper into the building, Ethan could sense that something else was waiting for them. They reached a small room at the back of the building, and Zara stopped in front of the door. This is it, she said. The others are inside. Ethan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment he had been preparing for. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he knew there was no turning back. Zara opened the door, revealing a group of people standing in the center of the room. They were all marked, just like him, with the same glowing symbols etched into their skin. Each of them had the same look in their eyes, determined, yet uncertain. They were all in this together now, and the weight of the responsibility rested on their shoulders. This is Ethan, Zara introduced him, her voice steady. He's one of us, and he's going to help lead us to victory. Ethan felt their eyes on him, and though he could feel the pressure mounting, he also felt a strange sense of unity. These people were like him, marked by the transformation, chosen to play a part in something much bigger than themselves. They were all connected, and together they would face the Cruvens and fight for the future of humanity. I'm ready, Ethan said, his voice strong. He could feel the power inside him, the energy that had been growing within him for so long. It was time to embrace it, to lead these people into battle. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. For sure, they weren't going to lose. The battle was coming, and this time they would fight as one. The following days passed in a blur of preparation and planning. Ethan and the others trained together, learning how to control their powers and how to fight as a team. The tension was thick in the air, with every passing moment bringing them closer to the inevitable confrontation with the Cruvens. Zara, Cameron, and the others had taught him a lot, but Ethan still couldn't shake the fear that lingered in the back of his mind. Could they really win this war? Could he really lead them to victory? The weight of leadership was heavier than he had ever imagined. But every time he looked at the group of marked humans gathered around him, he knew that there was no turning back. They were in this together, and they would stand together in the face of the enemy. One night, as they gathered around a table in the dimly lit warehouse, Zara stood up and addressed the group. "We've gathered enough support," she said, her voice calm but full of purpose. "The Cruvens will be here soon, and we cannot afford to waste any more time. We need to move now, or everything we've worked for will be lost." Ethan stood at the front of the group, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined he would be in a situation like this, leading a group of warriors against an enemy unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But now, standing before the group of transformed humans, he couldn't deny the strength he felt. Inside, they were ready. "We'll move out at dawn," Zara continued. "We'll make our way to the city outskirts, where we'll face the Cruvens head-on. They're preparing for an attack, but we'll be ready for them. We'll fight with everything we have, and we'll win." Ethan's eyes scanned the room. The others, Cameron, the tall man with the short hair, and the others nodded in agreement. They were all ready. They had trained hard for this, and now it was time to put everything they had learned into action. "Are you ready?" Zara asked. Turning to Ethan. Ethan nodded, his voice steady. "I'm ready." With that, the group stood together, united in their purpose. They would face the Cruvens, no matter the cost. They had no choice but to fight for their future, for humanity's future. The night passed quickly, and before Ethan knew it, the first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon. The team gathered their gear and prepared to leave. Zara led the way, and Ethan followed, his mind focused on the task ahead. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew one thing: they had to succeed. There was no other option. As they made their way through the city streets, Ethan felt the tension building. The air was thick with anticipation, and his heart raced with every step. The group moved in silence, their eyes scanning their surroundings for any sign of the Cruvens. They had to be careful. The enemy was powerful, and any mistake could cost them everything. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the city, where the battle would take place. Zara stopped, holding up her hand to signal for the group to halt. She turned to face them, her expression serious. "This is it," she said. "The Cruvens are just ahead. We move in quickly, and we fight with everything we've got. Stay focused. Stay together, and remember what we're fighting for." Ethan nodded, his grip tightening around the weapon he had been given during his training. The others did the same, and the group moved forward, prepared for whatever was to come. As they approached the clearing where the Cruvens were waiting, Ethan could see them in the distance. They were tall, their forms cloaked in dark armor, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly energy. They looked like shadows, dark and ominous, and for a moment, Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. But then he remembered why they were here. They were fighting for humanity's future. They were fighting for their freedom. Zara signaled for the group to stop, and they crouched behind a row of trees, watching the Cruvens from a distance. The enemy was heavily armed, but they didn't seem to be aware of the group's presence. "Yet, this is our chance," Zara whispered. "We move in now." Without hesitation, the group moved forward, creeping silently through the trees. Ethan's heart raced, and his breath came in short bursts as they got closer to the enemy. The moment they stepped into the open, the Cruvens turned their heads, their eyes locking onto the group. The battle had begun. The Cruvens raised their weapons, and the first shots rang out. The air was filled with the sound of energy blasts. As both sides began to fight, Ethan could feel the power inside him surge, and without thinking, he reached out with his mind, directing the energy to his hands. A burst of light erupted from his palms, striking one of the Cruvens and sending him stumbling backward. The others fought with similar intensity, using their powers to strike down the enemy. Cameron was at Ethan's side, fighting fiercely and using his enhanced strength to take down the Cruvens with quick, decisive blows. Zara moved like a shadow, her movements fluid and precise as she took out one enemy after another. Ethan was amazed by how easily he was able to control the power within him. The fear that had once gripped him began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man with strange marks on his arms. He was a leader, a warrior, and he was fighting for the future of humanity. The battle raged on, but the tide began to turn in their favor. The Cruvens were powerful, but they were not invincible. The group's training had paid off, and they fought together as a team, each member using their unique abilities to complement the others. As the last of the Cruvens fell, the group stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. Ethan looked around at the others, his heart swelling with pride. They had done it. They had won. Zara walked up to him, a look of approval on her face. "You did it, Ethan." "We did it," Ethan nodded, still trying to catch his breath. "We couldn't have done it without all of us working together." "You were the one who led them," Zara said. "You were the one who kept us going. This victory is as much yours as it is anyone's." Ethan looked at the others, their faces filled with relief and exhaustion. He knew that the battle wasn't over. This was just the beginning. But for the first time, he felt a sense of hope. They had won, and they would continue to fight. The war was far from over, but they had taken the first step toward a new future. And with the power of the transformation on their side, Ethan knew they would be ready for whatever came next.